Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm going to let a few more people join in while I get Hi Perfect Pitch. How are you this afternoon? I am going to let a few more people get in here while I get situated with my camera. Hi, Cyrus Santos. Thanks for joining. Hi, how's everybody doing this afternoon?
Hello, everyone.
Say hi. We've got people joining kind of fast, and I'm having trouble catching the names. Furcon0606. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get us started. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon. My guest today is Jennifer Leslie at 11 Alive, and I am so thankful to have her take some time with us to share what I'm calling Media 2.0, because I feel like pitching has kind of changed. So I'm going to let Jennifer kind of give us a little bit of background about you, tell us kind of some of the news stories you cover, and I'm going to let you take it away.
Okay, great. Well, thank you guys for joining in. Nicole and I are on Google Hangout while she Periscopes on her end. So she will be the moderator with the questions, and then I'm also on Twitter if you all want to try to fire anything directly that way. But I know that's probably tough to do, Periscope and Twitter at the same time. Anyway, I am a reporter with 11 Alive News, the NBC station in Atlanta. I've been here for 17 years. And right now I work on the morning shift, which I love. I wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning to be here by 3, and I report for our Atlanta Live show, which runs from 5 to 7 on WXIA TV, and then also for another hour on WATL until 8 o'clock. And I cover a wide range of stories, a lot of breaking news, a lot of hard news. We always try to find a new angle for the day, for the morning, the kinds of stories you want to know about when you wake up in the morning and start to plan your day. I also get to do other kinds of stories and, welcome pitches from those of you in public relations. I know you have a very tough job. I dabble in public relations for my church and for my son's school, and I know it can be tough to get people's attention, and I try to be very sensitive to that. The one thing that I love is the web, there are often stories that I know we won't be able to cover. And so, but they make great web stories for, a smaller audience. And if you do a web story and then share it on social media, it really goes a long way. And so it's a powerful tool that we haven't always had. And I love to take advantage of that. In fact, Nicole and I worked together. She was, knew she'd be at a football camp with some professional football players and kids, a free camp up in Cartersville on a weekend. And the chances of getting a crew up there were slim to none. And we communicated about that. And she offered to take some photos and video on her iPhone. And we were able to use those and turn them into a story, not only for the web, but also for our morning show. We used it as a moment and took some of the pieces of life advice that some of the pro players gave to her on her iPhone and turned that into a story. So that worked out really well. It doesn't always work out that well or that way, but that's an option. And the one thing that we did share about advice was to make sure that when you do shoot iPhone video, which we can use, that you shoot it vertically, because is that what I mean? Or I mean horizontally, right? Yeah. This way, horizontally. Because otherwise it's really tough to use that sort of strip of video if you shoot it the other way.
Yep, and I want to back up because I know some in my audience are wanting to get into PR and wanted to get on television. And Atlanta is a tough market because it's not an entry-level market. So can you back up and share with us kind of your journey to this point?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, it is. I hope it's still not an entry-level market. I went to school in Dallas, SMU, and studied broadcast journalism. My first job was in Port Arthur, Texas, which was market 130 something, very small. And I was there for a year and a half. And then I got a job in Knoxville, Tennessee, working for the NBC station there. That's a bigger market in the 60s. I was there for 2.5 years as a reporter, loved it. And then got a job in West Palm Beach, Florida, the NBC station there, WPTV. I was there for a year and a half, and then finally got a job in Atlanta. My husband, now husband, and I met in college. He moved here for a job to Atlanta. So as I moved around, we would obviously visit, and I grew to love Atlanta and really had hoped to get a job here. And it worked out after about 5 years in the business. And then I have been here ever since. I really love it here. Grew up in Houston, so I'm used to living in a big city, and have grown some deep roots here, and just love this city.
So what advice would you give to somebody that is trying to, or recent grad, to get into the news business?
Sure. So it is critical. It is not necessarily critical that you study broadcast journalism, although it does give you a foot in the door. You will learn to shoot and edit and write for news, and write fast. Speed and accuracy is important. And I remember being in classes where they would give you, some facts, and you'd have to write them so quickly, and how hard that was. And now it is what I do every day. I write quickly. You have to think quickly on your toes. And so that was helpful. And then when you are in those kinds of courses, you also do an internship. I did an internship in Dallas with the ABC station, WFAA, which was wonderful. And through that, I made a connection to the man who would turn out to be my first boss and news director. So it's all about making connections. The internship is really important. And from that internship, you build relationships at that station. And all of us here have been elsewhere. So when we have interns come in the door, if they prove themselves, you do have to prove yourself in an internship, and you can't just come in and expect things to be done for you. You have to be a hard worker. And when people come in and prove themselves, then we want to mentor them and go out of our way to help them get a start in the business. And I've seen interns here go on to do, to move up in markets and to do very well. And then others get in and say, this is not what I expected. This is not as glamorous as I thought it was going to be. This is not, the hours are too long, the pressure's too much, and they have chosen other fields, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that. It's actually a good thing, I think, for them to learn early on that this may not be for them. But for those who get in here and love it, then they are, on their way. It's a lot of hard work, but if you keep focused and work hard, then it's a very rewarding career.
Yeah, and I am a huge fan of internships because I had one every year, but it gives you a way to see what the career is really like. And we're getting several hearts, and Wendy Alpine just jumped in and said how much she loves Jennifer, and I agree. Jennifer is one of my favorites, truly, and I think I tweeted it or shared it. One of my favorites as far as authenticity, and I feel like if a story, if you deliver it, I can trust it, the facts that you found. So yes, definitely one of my favorites. I want to move now to the PR, the press release piece of it, and creating that press release that comes to you all. Hi, Shelly. Thank you for joining today. So let's just do a little PR 101. What makes a good press release?
Okay, well, we get all of our press releases through email now. And I want to talk about social media in just a moment. But first, let's talk about email press releases. The subject line is critical. That will get our attention or not. Sometimes they are too wordy, so you kind of have to pick and choose. Something, I know when I've written them, I'll say visual story, : blah, blah, blah. Just whatever you would almost make the headline of the story, of the web story, perhaps. If your event would then become a story on the news and go on our website, what would the headline be? That's sort of a good guide, perhaps, to catch your attention, because that's what headlines are all about, catching your attention.
That is a great tip.
Yeah, so make a good headline, your subject line, and then get to the who, what, when, where briefly, but really think about, why we should cover it, why our viewers would be interested, and what makes it truly newsworthy. What is the peg? And I know a lot of PR folks who do a really good job of following the news. And for instance, there is Patrick Crosby used to work for the U.S. Attorney's Office, and he as their spokesperson, and now he's in PR. And he's great about, he represents a lot of attorneys, and he's great about when there's a news story, he'll send an email to a lot of people he knows, and the same email, and say, I've got someone who can talk about this verdict coming in, and why, and be very specific about the story. And as a result, he gets a lot of his clients on the news. So following the news, finding a peg and shooting, going with it immediately is helpful. Social media is great too. If you have someone you think particularly would be interested in your story, reaching out to them on Twitter is great. For me, Facebook, I know Nicole and I, I've taken a couple days to find a message, because I'm not as good at seeing Facebook messages. I'm better at seeing Twitter messages or just direct tweets or tweets with my name in it. So everybody has a different style and has a different social media platform we prefer. So that's hard for y'all, because you kind of have to, figure it out a little bit, or find one that would be more common. But I think people are flattered when you find them on social media, and they're more likely to look at what you're talking about or listen to it. And a link to something is always helpful as well.
And that's kind of been what I've done, is I keep notes in just a basic Excel spreadsheet except for the journalists that I work with regularly. I just know off the top of my head, but national journalists that I may not work with all the time, I just keep notes and say, okay, this person responds to me on Twitter, or this person responds via email. And so that I know when I have these particular stories that this is their means of communication preference. So that hopefully some of my stories can rise to the top by, getting them what they need. And I also try not to flood journalists with just anything. I try to tailor it and make sure that if I'm sending something, it's of value to that particular journalist and their audience.
I'll give away a secret that somebody uses, and she's the only one I've seen do it. In her press release, she actually at the very top has a link that says share this on Twitter, and I don't know how she does it now, but literally, I get her email, and if I click that little blue thing, share this on Twitter, it becomes a tweet that I can then tweet out immediately. Now, I try not to always do that, because I don't want it, and I don't do everyone for sale, because sometimes that will just make it come. But it's really, it makes it really easy to share somebody's info on Twitter. And again, it's just at the top of a release, share this on Twitter, and then followed by a press release. And if I click, it creates a tweet that I can then kind of customize a little bit.
Yeah, and I'm having some technical difficulties. It is freezing up. So I'm trying to give it just a second to catch up. But yeah, Wendy just chimed in that it's a plugin called Tweet This. And I think you can Google Tweet This. Wendy, correct me if I'm wrong. I think you can Google Tweet This, and it'll come up to give you that option of being able to tweet something right out.
I really like that. Again, I don't do it all the time. It's easy. It doesn't hurt to go ahead and add that as part of your, usual press release that you send. Other thing, are you still?
Yeah, I'm kind of freezing. It's I think it's delayed. I'm not sure if you guys can. I can hear you good, but the screen is freezing. So I think we'll keep going, and it'll probably just catch up.
So one other tricky thing, it's not a big deal, but I've seen it a lot, is PR, you gotta have relationships with a lot of people because, you know, outlet, they may not always be able to do your story. But I do see a lot of times I'll get an email and it will say, "Dear Jennifer," and then it'll have all this stuff. And then say the same person sends one to John Schierick and he then forwards it to the newsroom. And then it says, "Dear John," and it's the same, you know, it's a form press release that's been customized with our names. And I get that's, I don't know a way around it, but just know that happens, that someone will inevitably share with the station, which is good because you want that to happen. But when it's customized, it sort of takes away from, like, I go, "Oh, they didn't really want that just for me."
Yeah.
In a way, it takes the heat. I know I don't have to deliver for. I mean, honestly, and it's good and bad. I'm like, "Oh, okay, John's got this," or "Now the newsroom's got this." So it kind of, you know, I can delete mine without the guilt. And I am one of those people who, you know, I try not to just wholesale delete an email or a pitch. But I do, you know, I understand what you all do and feel that a response is, you know, that it's worthy of a response and ideally, you know, worthy of coverage or at least an explanation for why coverage will be tricky.
Yeah, and tell me how much control or say-so you all have in getting a story on air. Like, you see something in your inbox that you like, but then you take it to editor or producer, newsroom. What happens?
Yeah, we have, for the morning show, we have a meeting every day at 8:30. The Dayside crew has their meeting at 9, and then there's an afternoon editorial meeting at, I think, 3 o'clock. And that's where all of us are responsible for pitching stories. And so it starts with, you know, getting an email or a tweet or something or a call from someone we know or someone in NPR. And if it sings to me, if it's something that piques my interest, then I'll turn around and pitch it to our producers and our news director for the morning show. And but it has to sing to me first, because I can't pitch something that I'm not excited about. And then if I'm really excited about it and the producers are not as excited, then I'll be more inclined to fight for it. And there are stories I have fought for, and there are stories that I've kind of, you know, been on the fence on and dropped. But that's sort of the you know, you gotta to me, you've got to either hook your assignment desk or your reporter or producer first. And when I, you know, when I talk about your contacts, they can be an on-air person, but you can also make a great contact with someone on the desk. You can also make a great contact with the producer, because we all are part of the same pool in terms of pitching stories. And one of it is that we have a system called I have no idea what it stands for, but we have with channels 5 and 46, and we're each day parts. So I think overnight is during the day. We're LNS, and at night I think 5 is LNS. There's one photographer assigned to complete 2 or 3 stories, and once they go, and it's usually. And once they do that, then they'll share that. They have a story on 3 different stations.
Jennifer, can you say what that system?
It might end up on none of the.
Jennifer, can you say what that system is in Atlanta again? I think I lost the audio for a second.
It's called LNSE SAM. I don't know what it stands for. It's a video sharing agreement. And so I don't know how, it might be too inside of baseball if you were to say in a pitch, this would be great for LNS, but it might be worth a try. And it's basically, stations have to agree on the stories that we cover, and it's 2 or 3 during the day and at night. Overnight, it's usually breaking news, but then they share the story with all the stations except for Channel 2, and so you get a better chance of getting on the air at least at one of those 3 stations.
Oh, thanks. The video's lagging, so I'm trying to get the Google Hangout. Of course, it worked all day until we got on Scope. but the audio is now good, so that's good. And I wanted to touch on one thing before we wrap up, is the building of the relationships. I think that is the hardest thing I hear from others in PR as they try to build relationships with journalists, whether it's in their same city or nationally. What advice would you have as far as how to not come across creepy or anything like that, for lack of a better word, to start building relationships with some of the journalists in the area?
Yeah, well, let me ask. I'm going to answer that, but then I'm going to get back. I actually just got a question on Twitter from Ty Mays, and Ty, I'll answer your question in just a second.
Okay.
So Nicole, well, I mean, we're a perfect example. That we developed our relationship through social media, and through Facebook, and you were just good about reaching out and making pitches or commenting on tweets or stories that I'd done, and so social media can play a big role. And, every once in a while, if there's someone you feel a connection to, you can, comment or like, or, favorite something they've done that may not have anything to do with you or your clients. And then I think once you do one story with someone, then that kind of breaks down that barrier, and you are inclined to sort of look more closely at their pitches, and you build a relationship that way. I will tell you that going to breakfast or coffee or lunch is a challenge with reporters, because I never go to lunch, or, I mean, I eat lunch every day, and I drink coffee every day, and I go, have breakfast, but I never schedule it, because I just, rarely schedule it, because I just don't know my schedule day to day. And I hate the idea of canceling it for, breaking news. And so that is tough, because it'd be great if you could just call up and say, let's have coffee, and then you can pitch all, everything. And that's just, not realistic for most journalists. So Ty was asking, how can PR pros best prepare you to pitch our stories at your morning meetings? I think it's just, yes. And I'll tweet out that acronym, Nicole, that I was talking about.
Okay, good.
With the video. So, just a good, pitch through an email, or a conversation, but an email is really the best source of telling, what and why you think it would be a good story. And there are just, frankly, some stories that aren't going to be good on TV. And those are stories, that, meetings are not very good on TV. Sometimes, like business solutions or technology can do well, but not always. So you can always do your best pitch, but sometimes just know that it just may be a struggle. And I will be very honest with people if they try to pitch something that I think, might be better on the web, or something that because we just, our resources are limited, and we're really into holding the powerful accountable, and that is an important mission for our station. And so a lot of our resources are tied up in that. And so sometimes some of the stories that we might go cover to kind of fill the newscast, don't get covered as much anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I see that in several markets. I don't think that's definitely just here in Atlanta. And so my final question for you before we wrap up, my final question is social media. How have you seen social media impact media relations, PR over the years from when you first started to now?
I mean, I love social media. So I think I've gotten lots of stories, through email. I'm sorry, I got distracted by the Ty Mays. It's funny, she tweeted about going to breakfast and coffee and lunch. It's going to make me sound very antisocial. I don't mean to sound that way, but I can remember specific stories that just started with a tweet. There was a great story a couple of summers ago when social media was just getting started, and I love Twitter. and Periscope,
Yeah.
but I really love Twitter, and more than Facebook and Instagram. And so that's just what I use the most. And, I remember a couple of years ago, I've had many since, but a couple of years ago, somebody pitched a new cooling bed for dogs and said that UGA was using it.
Uh-huh.
And, they were just getting this business started, and it was hot summer, and it ended up being a great little story. And it started with it wasn't a direct message. It was just hey, at J. Leslie 11 Alive, I've got a great story for you about keeping dogs cool in the summer. Even UGA's using it, and had a link to the website. I'm like, that sounds neat. And so clicked on it, and it went from there.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, I lean towards Twitter too. I think I've been able to build the most relationships with journalists on Twitter. And LinkedIn, I'm starting to get some connections on LinkedIn that have been very fruitful. So
Good.
I wanted to thank you. Did you get another question? Were you about to say something else?
No, that's great. No, LinkedIn, I think I don't see that being used much for news, but that doesn't mean that it won't be. And, and I probably should be better at it. But yeah, that's good to know.
Yeah, and it's not been local. It's been national stories. So people that I've reached out to in Canada, I have a client in Canada. So people I've reached out to in Canada has been very helpful. And it's just, I don't know that the journalists are active on there, but they are on there. So I've been able to send a message, and I guess it rises to the top because not many other people are sending messages via LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So it's worked a few times. So I don't want to keep you past 12:30. I do want to thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me and share some tips and some of the knowledge that you have about PR and media. But just thank you so much. And guys, this is Jennifer Leslie, and I have been your moderator today for PR tips and tricks. And enjoy this broadcast. And I'm going to sign off and say bye and hope everybody...